this will be our last video in the series, and hopefully bring this thing back full circle for you so you can go and try some of these things out on your own, and not completely on your own because you have a lot of resources, which we'll talk about here. But one really important thing to touch on is that there's lots of ways to practice, and that this mindfulness practice can really seep its way into all different parts of your life. And if you decide to continue with it, it hopefully will. So we've done different kinds of sitting meditations today, but there's walking meditation, there's different kinds of eating meditation, chanting and singing are forms or can be forms of meditation, lots of kinds of movement meditation. So really, almost anything can become a meditative object if you do it in such a way that creates the grounds for that. But one benefit of some of these seated practices that we were working on is that we can kind of treat them like a laboratory or a safe space. And I kept referring to doing experiments, and there's a reason for that, because we want to set up a little bit of a controlled environment where we can really safely and calmly observe our responses, having a good idea that things outside of us are going to be stable and we can have some control of the situation. So these practices are really important and useful in that way. Now, there's a lot of really cool research that I want to share before we close, but of course there's not time to share all of it. So one book, if you're very interested in the research, that I'd recommend is the book Altered Traits, which is by Richie Davidson and Daniel Goleman. And that's an excellent book, really easy to read, fun to read, and has a ton of really great stuff on particularly the neuroscience of meditation. So that's one resource. I will just say a few things before we close. One is that this mindfulness practice, for those of us that find ourselves, like most of us do, in frequently very challenging and high demand situations, mindfulness practice has actually been proven to help us sustain our performance and our ability to respond over time in very demanding and stressful situations. So things like a long and difficult school semester or preseason athletic training, even military training is where a lot of this research comes from. And it's been proven to do this much more effectively than positive self-talk or just getting hyped up on positive emotions, much more effective than that. So that's one little interesting piece. And really it can always just help us improve our attention. And the way that it often is doing that is by keeping us from getting distracted or overwhelmed by anxiety or other difficult emotions, stress-inducing thoughts. And the last thing is that it's been shown, and this is particularly relevant during this time, it's been shown to help the immune system function better. And this is a real thing, and there's a lot of really good research on it. It keeps our inflammation down. And then it also is slowing our cellular process of aging, and all of those things are related to each other in this case. So very important, very useful. Now, as you go out on your own, there's a ton of really good resources. We live in a great time in the world to learn mindfulness. There's a ton of great apps, which are highly recommended if you're on your smartphone a lot, like most of us are. So many of them you've probably heard of. Headspace is great. That's how I started. Calm is wonderful. 10% Happier, also great. For those who are looking for a more in-depth course, the Waking Up app is a really good one. There's a couple of different books that I'd recommend. I recommended Altered Traits for those of you interested in the research. And there's great books on every little nuance of the subject. So we'll provide a list separately from here. As far as podcasts go, I highly recommend Tara Brach has a podcast, and I believe 10% Happier also has a podcast. And then I'm always available as a resource. We'll have my contact information below, but my website is secondcocoon.com, and that's also my Instagram. And if you want to reach out to me by email, it's on my website, but it's also Sam A. Tullman, Tullman, @gmail.com. So there's lots and lots of resources, and please reach out to any of them, not just me, but use these things. It's really, really useful, even for experienced practitioner, to get support and to get help and community. Because when we do it in a social way, we're actually utilizing all of the systems that we can as human beings. We know that that's how we get motivated. And that's the best way to do it if you're really wanting to start. And then use your excitement. As we're going into this period, for many of you, this is going to be a new exploration. And that's wonderful. And it's natural to be excited and be really motivated and fired up to establish this habit and get it going. And definitely use that. And then continue on when it becomes mundane as well, which is also a natural part of the process. But let that fire kind of bring you through if you're feeling excited, if you're feeling interested in going for this. And I think I'll leave you with another Pema Chodron quote, who has said this same thought really, really well. So she says, "In the beginning, people sometimes find this meditation exciting. It's like a new project. And you think that if you do it, perhaps all the unwanted stuff will go away and you'll become open, non-judgmental, and unconditionally friendly. But after a while, the sense of project wears out. You find time each day and you sit down by yourself. You come back to that breath through boredom, edginess, fear, and well-being. This perseverance and repetition, when done with honesty, a light touch, humor, and kindness, is its own reward." Once we know this instruction, we can put it into practice. Then it's up to us what happens next. Ultimately, it comes down to the question of just how willing we are to lighten up and loosen our grip. How honest do we want to be with ourselves? So thank you so much for your time. May you be well during this time of increased stress and during all times. And I hope to cross paths with you. Thank you.